Well, we have now arrived at the end of Lent with the beginning of Holy Week today on Palm Sunday. And as we've been looking at the Eucharist these past several weeks, now we hear once again about the institution of the Eucharist at the Last Supper. And today I want to speak a little bit about Eucharistic Adoration, because we adore Jesus at Mass, we worship Him at Mass, but we should also do it outside of Mass too. St. Augustine said, we consume what we adore, and we adore what we consume. So at Mass, we consume the Jesus that we adore in the Blessed Sacrament, and then in adoration, we adore the Jesus that we consume. And so we know that Jesus is truly present in our tabernacles in a mysterious but real way, and He will be present on the altar in just a few minutes. And this is such a great gift for us. You know, people say sometimes, well, I just wish that I had lived during the time of Jesus. Maybe I could hear His voice. Maybe I could see His beautiful face. Well, that would be amazing. But if Jesus were living today, for example, and if He were living in Jerusalem, we would have to take several airplane flights to get there just to be able to see Him. But Jesus has come up in His infinite wisdom with a way of being with us all over the world, wherever there is a church, wherever there is the Blessed Sacrament. And so I just have a couple practical things to keep in mind as we try to adore Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. The first is that we can always come to the church and to take time to pray. Whether it's a short little visit in the evening or on a weekend when we have a little bit of extra time, coming in here, praying, it could be a simple prayer, and then we could also just head on out. That would be very good. Also, even when we pass by the church, it's a practice of a lot of people that whenever they pass a Catholic church, that they make the sign of the cross as a sign of reverence for Jesus. And one of my friends, a priest, he said, when you drive past, you could just say, "Hi, Jesus," and then you could keep going. You know, that would be a little prayer. I mean, a very simple prayer. Obviously, if someone else is in the car with you, you could probably say it quietly. You could also make an act of spiritual communion. And what that means is that when we are telling Jesus, I want to receive you right now in Holy Communion, but I can't. Like it's, you know, the afternoon, Mass is not happening, I'm passing past the church, and I say that to Jesus. And you can even like imagine yourself inside the church and saying a prayer to Him. Obviously, you don't want to close your eyes while you're driving a car, but you can do this with your eyes open and just saying these prayers. The saints would go out of their way. If there were two ways to get wherever they were going, they would take the one that had the most churches along it. And many people stop in churches just for a brief visit, even when they pass through. So that's a really good way to do it, just coming here and praying before the tabernacle. The other gift that we have is the Adoration Chapel, where we have Jesus in the sacred monstrance. So we can, the Eucharist is visible within that monstrance so that we can pray before Him. And the difference is like this, and I explain this to children. If you lived in Nazareth and you walked past the house of the Holy Family and you know Jesus lives there with Mary and Joseph, you might stop and look at the house and make some act of adoration, maybe a genuflection or something. You might say a prayer, and that would be great. But if Jesus were standing on the porch of His house, then you would see Him, and you know that He would see you, and that He could hear you, and that you could hear Him. And that's the gift of adoration with the monstrance. We get to see Jesus in the Eucharist and know that He hears us. And so it's an immense gift. Many people obviously take time throughout their week to make an hour of adoration in our chapel, which is open from Tuesday morning till Friday at noon. And that would be a great thing to start, especially for parents. Because when it comes to the Eucharist, every child's heart asks this question: does Dad believe this? Does Mom believe this? And you can tell them, you can speak to them about your belief in the Blessed Sacrament in the Eucharist, but you can also show them by your example. My parents, at their home parish in Wichita, they had an adoration hour. They've probably had it for over 30 years now, every Sunday at 8 p.m. And we saw them always leave and go, and they'd invite us too. And it was a great example. And so we can always give this to our children, no matter how old they are. It's never too late to start, to show them this gift of the Eucharist. And the last thing I want to share with you is that we can invite other people to also come into the Eucharistic presence of Jesus and receive the peace and the grace that we also find here. You know, if you come into this church, we know that it feels different than like our home. It feels different than the school, and that's because Jesus is truly present here. And so we should be able to invite other people into this. So you can think of a loved one who maybe feels far from the church, or a friend who has a difficult time at Mass or it's challenged by it, or an acquaintance who may not believe in God or in Christ. And imagine them sitting next to you for 10 minutes in silent prayer, and what a benefit that would be for them. In the Gospels, there's a very clear sequence. Jesus is first present to people, then he teaches them, and then he invites them to the act of worship in his Paschal mystery. And so it can be the same for us, inviting people into his presence first, and then inviting them to worship him. And there's 3 different ways we can do this: through our testimony, through an invitation, and through our intercession. So we can testify to people about our belief in the Blessed Sacrament, in the gift that it is to us. You know, if we just said to people, well, on Sundays we go to church and we receive communion, they might say, well, that's great, I do that also in my church. But if you were to give them a more full explanation of what the Eucharist is, that is truly Jesus present among us, that we reserve that Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacles, and we can go to pray there, that is a powerful testimony that we can offer to people that we know. We can also invite them, of course. And this you might think about practical ways or like prudence, but we never know how many people are out there just waiting for an invitation to come and engage in the presence of Christ or re-engage with the love of Jesus through our direct invitation. We might say, I found a treasure in adoration of the Eucharist, and I want you to come share that with me. Would you come and pray with me? And the final thing is we can intercede for them through intercession. So there might be people that say, no, I'm not going to go, or they don't want to go, or they can't come, or something like that. Well, we can bring them spiritually to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament through our prayers. And there's a great example of this in the Gospels. You know, that paralyzed man, his 4 friends picked him up and took him to the place where Jesus was. And so on the stretcher of our prayers, we can take our spiritually paralyzed friends, neighbors, acquaintances, loved ones, and pray for them before the Lord and say, Lord, this is a person that you love, and I brought them here so that you might bless them. All of these things are very good, and they're ways that we show our true belief in the Eucharist. So whether it's adoring him simply here in the church or in the Adoration Chapel, through our example to our children or our invitation to others, all of these are great ways to accomplish this, and something we should strongly consider doing. Now let us stand for the profession of our faith. I